So, with that being said, I would like to introduce our patient speaker, and that is William HIndin. So, thank you.
It is my honor to speak with you this evening. I'm so glad to see all of you, and you'll hear a little more about why. Let me just start with this. Tell me by show of hands, how many of you have had a virus, a flu, a cold, something that lasted on and on and on, made you miserable, and you never thought that you would ever get over it? By show of hands, how many people have had that experience? Okay, quite a few of you, exactly. Now imagine if you suffered from this month after month, year after year for your entire life. How would you feel? You would be frightened, you would be demoralized, you'd be depressed, and the outlook wouldn't be very good. And that's what patients like myself with primary immunodeficiency disease go through. We have these challenges all of our life. We are children that are born with this disease, that miss school because we're constantly ill, that we don't have a chance to have a normal childhood. We are parents who are scared to death that their child is going to become ill again and see their child suffering and see their child in the hospital. And we are parents and adults that are too ill to go to work. They can't make enough money to support our families because we can't be at work enough. We can't reach our potential. And we also can't enjoy those sorts of family vacations and things that normal families do. And we are older people, such as myself, who can't enjoy the later years of our life because of the amount of damage that's been done to our bodies because of years of infection, and we can't enjoy our retirement. So it's not a very pretty picture. Primary immunodeficiency disease, also known as PI, is an unusual disease because there's genetic damage. And because what happens is that because of this genetic damage, our bodies are not able to produce the antibodies to fight off disease. So we are always susceptible to viruses and illnesses that are recurrent, that are unusual, that are hard to treat. And these sorts of things make it very, very difficult. We find ourselves in the hospital quite a bit. And as you can all imagine, the hospital is the absolute worst place for us to be because of our immunodeficiency. We certainly don't want to be in that environment. So that's the sort of things that we face. When we talk about a normal immune system, it's an absolute miracle of engineering. We're born with some innate immunities that are given to us by our mother. And over the first 3 years of our life, we develop an adaptive immune system. So every virus that we're exposed to, our body responds to it and fights it off. And not only does it fight it off, but it remembers that particular virus. And if we're ever exposed to it again, in our body's memory, in our immune system, it's ready to fight off this outside attacker. For those of us with PI, we may produce antibodies, but those antibodies may not be able to have the ability to fight off these attackers. And sometimes we produce no antibodies whatsoever. So to one degree or another, we're vulnerable to any and all external threats. In the United States, that's about 1 in 1,200 people. We think that many, many thousands more go undiagnosed. This disease is considered a rare disease, but it may not be as rare as people think. But unfortunately, the awareness in the community, the medical community, is such that oftentimes doctors don't test for it because some doctors and immunologists don't even know about it. So there may be a lot of people out there suffering that don't need to be, but they've never been diagnosed with it. There are 250 and counting variations of this disease. And interestingly enough, that when we are not ill, we look normal. There is no telltale sign that we have this disease. But what happens is when we do get sick, we get sick very, very quickly, and we get very, very sick. And this can happen in just a matter of hours. Now, my story. I was diagnosed at 50 years old with primary immune deficiency disease called common variable immune deficiency. That's the type that I have, called CVID. And I was diagnosed quite by chance, which is very typical for adult patients that are diagnosed with this disease. I was sent to an allergist immunologist because I had some skin allergies. I basically had an itchy back. That simple. I went in there and told the doctor my medical history, and she did some blood work, and I came back a few weeks later and she said I need to do some more testing, some more blood work and some more testing. And she did that, and I came back a few weeks later and she said, I don't care about your itchy back. She said, I think you have a primary immune deficiency. And I said, what's that? And she explained it to me. And suddenly, my first 50 years of my life, I realized that all those years that I'd have a couple of good years and I wouldn't be very sick, and then I'd have 4 or 5 just terrible years. I never would just get a cold. I'd end up with bronchitis. I'd end up with pneumonia. I'd end up on antibiotics for long periods of time. I realized that this has been going on all my life, but no doctor had picked up on it. So for all those years, I was ill for a significant amount of time. The good news is that this doctor happened to be familiar with primary immunodeficiency, and stage props are very important. She put this out in front of me, and she said, you're page 13. This is the patient handbook put out by the Immune Deficiency Foundation. And may I add, on the back it says, sponsored and underwritten by Baxter. So thank you. And she said, read up on this. There is no cure, but there's a treatment. And she said, if you want to begin this treatment, it's monthly gamma globulin infusions in our infusion suite. And if you'd like to begin that, we can try that for 12 months and see if it makes a difference for you. You come in once a month, and we will administer this medication to you. And after thinking about it for a little bit, I said, absolutely, let's give this a try. Let's see what happens. And so we did that. And I can tell you, in that 12 months that I was on this, I didn't have a sniffle. Not one sniffle. It was incredibly successful for me. And I can only say I thank that doctor for having the curiosity to find out what was going on. Unfortunately, after a year, because of insurance changes, I was taken off of GammaGuard. And by the way, I should tell you, since I brought it up, this is what they put me on. And this is GammaGuard. This is liquid gold. And so I went off of the treatment, and I had a couple of good years, and then all of a sudden in 2010, I was sick 9 times in 3 months. As soon as I'd start to get better from one thing, I'd get sick with something else. And then the next year, I was sick 8 times in 4 months. And I said, I can't go back to this. So I went back to an immunologist. We did more blood work. We went through square one again. And they approved me for going back on GammaGuard. So in 2012, I restarted GammaGuard, but I did it subcutaneously so I could do it at home, which was just great. And I can tell you that since 2012, I've had one minor 4-day normal cold since I've been back on subcutaneous GammaGuard. I tell you these sorts of things to illustrate the fact that the work that you do is so important. What's important to me is that you realize that those thousands of liters of plasma that you collect that are then sent to the plant at Baxter or Baxalta and processed into this liquid gold changes lives significantly. That's something you should always remember. What's most important also is that if we didn't have this liquid gold, our lives would be miserable. We would suffer. Many of us would fade away from life. and some of us, yes, some of us would die. So your work is that vital. So please remember this. You may be having problems at home. You may be having problems with your lives. You may have good days and bad days like we all do. You may have days you don't feel like going into work. You don't want to be there. But even if you have a bad day, you are making it a good day for one of us with this disease. And there was a song in the 80s whose lyrics went, "Did you ever know you were my hero and everything I want to be? I can fly higher than an eagle because you are the wind beneath my wings." And ladies and gentlemen, you are the wind beneath our wings. So, thank you.